And Connor earlier today was suggesting to me that with the Eagles' pass rush situation, the last week's activities, 1 + 1 could equal 1, that with the additions, they may have found a way to replace the production of Josh Sweat.
Yeah, adding Azeez Ojulari yesterday helps kind of, offset a little bit what they may lack now at the edge rusher spot. He's a little more productive than Josh Uche, who, to me is probably a little more of a kind of a depth piece. Let's see what he can give us. Does he have any potential upside here? Azeez falls in that category too. It's just a 1-year deal, I think around $4 million. So it's not a huge financial commitment. He's more of a kind of a 3-down guy. He can defend the run. He can set the edge. I don't know if Uche is that type of edge defender, and quite frankly, hasn't been that guy before. I still feel like there's a possibility of them doing something a little larger at the edge rusher position because, quite frankly, that's going to be the position. That's been the position and will continue to be the position that they're probably going to need to address the most this offseason because you have Josh Sweat leaving to the Cardinals. You have Brandon Graham most likely retiring, and you have Bryce Huff situation, which, quite frankly, is not resolved. And I'm sure Howie Roseman would love to move him if he could.
So what does this do if Bryce Huff is indeed on the team and stays through this offseason? What does this do for the expectations for a player like him going into the season, adding to the edge rusher position?
If Huff is still on the roster?
Yes.
Well, it was so bad by the end of last year. Obviously he was not active for the Super Bowl. Brandon Graham, who had one arm, was active above him. So that speaks volumes. Look, if they can't move him, they're going to give him every opportunity through the spring and training camp to figure out how to play in the scheme and how to be effective. But so anything's possible. Howie Roseman, around the Super Bowl said that, he thinks the story is yet to be written on Huff, but, I think actions speak louder than words, and it could be a situation where he just kind of backed in, placed kind of in the corner the way James Bradbury was last year when it became very evident that he was not going to be a contributor to the roster. Now he tore his Achilles. But they had planned to try and move him at some point during the season, and the injury kept them from doing that. With Huff, they'll probably do everything they can to move him. But if the season comes around and he still isn't getting it, they have to, and that's what they're doing right now. They have to think about other alternatives.
Jeff, why have we not heard anything about a Brandon Graham retirement yet?
I think we'll hear something soon.
Okay. That's good.
Whether he's staying or going. But he said before the season this was the last season. He won a Super Bowl. I think all the signs are pointing to what everyone is expecting.
Now, Jeff, we also got news yesterday on a Lane Johnson contract restructure, which has been a common theme in the past couple of years with the way the Eagles have handled his payment structure. Can you explain just a little bit further what the Eagles did in adding that $8 million?
I think they were rewarding one of their best players, quite frankly. And it does. Look, new money doesn't mean they can clear cap space this year. It'll probably go up just a small amount. But what it does is it gives them a little more flexibility now that you have 3 years on the deal versus 2 to kind of structure the contract the way they want to in future years, right? And so, this is something that the Eagles have been doing a long time, right? Joe Banner, extending your core players, the guys you think they'll be here for a while, early into their contracts. There's a little bit of risk with that, of course. But for the most part, it has helped this franchise over the last 2 decades. And Howie has certainly bought into that. In fact, I think he's taking it to almost an extreme. And this is an example of it. And because Joe typically wouldn't give this additional money that wasn't necessary, after you've signed a contract. The Saquon Barkley thing, typically you wouldn't see maybe the pre-Howie Roseman regime do that. But this is something that they've, they feel comfortable doing. And Barkley, certainly, you could look at his production last year, what he meant to this team, earned a raise. And I think they're saying the same thing here about Lane Johnson, and who knows, maybe even Jalen Hurts.
If you were to say, do you think there's going to be a conga line now that we're going to see of moves, maybe extending some players or maybe making decisions on the roster with some of this money that was saved by making some of the moves?
I think you have to be careful with that. And I think it's like you look at the team. I mean, who are the guys who deserve raises, right? I mean, aren't many that you can say. And I'm not saying that you won a Super Bowl, everyone deserves a raise. But like I'm talking about like that you can go in the locker room and give a certain guy a raise and everyone isn't being jealous about it.
I was thinking more extensions though, with the money that they've adjusted. Like, are there guys in order right now that you think now that money being saved?
Cam Jurgens, we all know, is probably someone that they have high on their list. They're going to extend. He's heading into the fourth year of his rookie contract. He's probably the primary guy. I think Reed Blankenship's another guy. He's heading into the last year of his deal with C.J. Gardner-Johnson being moved. They're probably going to want to extend him as well. So guys like that, I don't think they're going to give Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, guys who just signed deals last offseason, extensions.
So, Jeff, the Eagles have a bunch of draft picks over the next 2 years. But just looking at this upcoming draft, in your best guess, do the Eagles head into draft night in late April with the same amount of picks they currently hold? Or is Howie Roseman looking to potentially move some of those assets for a trade ahead of the draft?
It's possible. They have 8 right now, right? They have 10. No, 12, I guess.
12.
They're projected to have 12 for 2026.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, they have a lot of picks. They're armed with a lot of picks. That does give Howie the ability to, if he can't find who he thinks is the starting safety, he really wants to get a starting edge rusher. He has the capital to make a move there, and we've seen him do it before. And, quite frankly, this wasn't a strong free agent class. You don't want to kind of overspend for a position that you have of need when there are alternative ways, again, to finding those types of players. And we've seen Howie Roseman do this over the last decade plus. The trade market is something that he is an avenue that he has long used to find starters. And we've seen him do it around the draft. We've seen him do it in training camp, and we've seen him do it right before the start of the season. So, and even right before the trade deadline in season. So, just because the roster is as it is right now doesn't mean that's what we're going to see here in the next month, the next 2 months, the next 3 or 4 months. There are still plenty of opportunities for Roseman to do stuff, and having 20 potential draft picks allows him to do that. So, yeah, to answer your question. I find it hard to believe that, the picks that he has and when they stand right now is where he'll be in a month, and certainly next year where they'll be in a year and a month.
Go to Inquirer.com/sports and be sure to be checking out the fine work of Jeff McLane. Jeff, we always appreciate you. Thanks for making time this morning.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for checking out our content on the 97.5 The Fanatic YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed the video. And remember, you can always be checking the playlist. There may be something you missed from one of our shows during the day that you want to go back and check out. So every time you like a video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and you'll have that great content coming to you every single day. You're greatly appreciated.